Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, episode 424. I'm your host, Michael. Joining me, usual cast of characters, Gail from nyfights.com, Daniel from 4 Boxing News and the Inscriber. What's going on, lady and gent?
You know it. Everybody's talking about it. It. We might as well do the
Yeah,
same. You know, we're all in. We are all in tonight. Join us.
yeah. I was low to talk about it, but given what
Get over
transpired
it.
over the weekend,
Get
I
over
guess we
it.
have to we have to discuss it in a bit. But for those who are new to Pound for Pound Boxing Report, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, live YouTube show, podcast, blog, site, etc., discussing all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we'll talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science in any form or fashion, it will get discussed. Um, if you want to check out any and all information regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, the site is the place to go to for the time being. P4pboxingreport.com. If you wish to email us with any comments, questions, etc., you can do so. P4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. On the site, you will find links to where to check out all things Pound for Pound Box Report all over social media, links to the YouTube channel, links to the Facebook page, Twitter, IG, Tumblr page. If you would like to donate, got a Cash Me and PayPal donation link on the site as well. Um, let donation be the best nation. If you have any money to spare, if you wish to contribute, wouldn't matter to us if it's $1, $2, $5. We will be eternally grateful. It'll help the overall production behind the scenes. Um, Also, links to where to catch out Pound for Pound Box Report all over social media. Not all over social media, excuse me, all over the podcast platform, be it Spotify, be it Apple, be it Anchor, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, you should be able to find Pound for Pound Box Report. Last but certainly not least, for any fellow fitness enthusiasts out there with the holidays coming up, we are recording this live just a day before Halloween, and you know, with Halloween soon to follow, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. If you want to get your body right, so you can keep off the extra pounds while you eat up, consume all the food during the holiday season, please check out the links to uh, Body, formerly known as Beachbody On Demand. Um, Programs for any and all suitable interest. If you're looking for a boxing specific program, check out 6 week, not 6 weeks of the work, excuse me. Check out 10 rounds, and that is a 6 week boxing based program. 3 days of boxing based cardio, 2 days of resistance slash weightlifting. At the very least, take advantage of the free 14-day trial on Body. And as if you do that, you get 14 days free access to any and all programs on Body, be it programs like Lift 4, Lift More from a weightlifting enthusiast, be it 10 rounds, be it hard challenging programs like 6 weeks of the work, the P90X series, the Insanity series, and anything and everything in between. Uh, yeah, please check out Body if you for my fitness enthusiasts again on Pound for Pound Box Report site. Let's get things going. Let's get into it because we talked about it a little bit last week, but we should, given what happened this past weekend in Saudi Arabia, we might as well do a deep dive into this and start the conversation. Ladies first, as usual, with you, Gail. Tyson Fury, WBC heavyweight champion, fought a non-title bout. It got eventually sanctioned against former UFC heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou. And for those who are checking the show out on YouTube, we have the show titled "Welp Till Infinity" because Fury was able to escape near disaster as he, to the surprise of everyone, got put down in round three with a left hook. Um, Ngannou was able to push the Gypsy King back, uh, took the fight to him all fight long. He would attempted a MMA Superman punch in the last round. Fury ended up winning, but it was what, 95-94 in favor of Ngannou, 95-94 in favor of Fury, 96-93 in favor of Fury. Many people, many observers, including a lot of fellow fighters who were in attendance. They had a special gala presentation for past and past and present world champions. Right, were in attendance in Saudi Arabia. Celebrities all over the place. Many of them felt that Ngannou deserved the verdict. Uh, Now that we've had a couple of days to kind of digest what went down, what we saw in Saudi Arabia, your thoughts on what happened? Fury did look himself. Ngannou, dare I say, performed better than many anticipated. Yeah, surprises all around.
If you'll remember last week, me speculating just for grins, what would happen if Francis Ngannou beat Tyson Fury to become the lineal heavyweight champion? Ladies and gentlemen, we came within one round of one scorecard of that happening, which is really something to ponder. Uh, at the last minute on Saturday, I thought, whatever happens, I get it. It's a spectacle. It's yet another crossover fight. But something told me, you need to watch this. And I did. I did also want to see the heavyweights on the undercard. So that there was that. They were sort of a non-factor. If any of you were wondering, all but one of the fights televised ended in a first round or early round knockout. Joseph Parker looked good against Simon Keane. But come on, there's really only one fight everybody's talking about. Francis Ngannou, proved that he is an exceptional athlete, no matter the sport. There are athletes like this that come along, every so often in a generation that can play multiple sports. And Ngannou proved that he's got the skills to transfer them over. This was after just 4 months of training, just 4 months. He was in exceptionally good condition. His stamina was not as bad as I thought it might be. He definitely started gassing a little bit. He was smart about conserving his energy. Unfortunately, if he was conserving in the 9th and 10th rounds, he let the fight just barely get away from him. Now, he is saying today in interviews he's very happy with his performance. He said, he wished it would have gone his way, but he felt that he'd done his best. He had trained well and done what he could do, and he'll be better next time. And he's promising there's a next time. On the other hand, Tyson Fury clearly did not take this seriously. And given that he's got the unified heavyweight champion waiting in the wings for him, Alexander Usyk, did that jinx him? Did that poison things? Did he make the utter mistake of overlooking the opponent in front of him? He would not be the first champion to do that. Who's looking too far down the road and unfortunately, runs across a rock in the road right in front of him he forgot to look at. He came in heavy, much heavier than expected. And he looked flat. He clearly did not anticipate the version of Francis Ngannou standing across from him. He must have thought this was going to be the heavyweight Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor. It was not. He had a much more determined man across from him. Will and determination has been the calling card of Francis Ngannou his entire life, if you know his story. And that put him in the ring, and that put him in a position to be dangerous. And Tyson Fury escaped with by the skin of his teeth, and perhaps some kind assessments by a couple of the judges. It was close either way. I think a split decision is fair. I do think, in the overall scheme of things, despite the fact that as a judge you are judging 10 individual 3-minute fights, in the overall scheme, when that bell rang, who did you think had performed better? Who do you think had won overall? If someone asked you to throw away the scorecards and say who won, Francis Ngannou won. partially because he so far exceeded expectations. And exceeding expectations is exactly what you want to do in life, everywhere possible. So a shocker, when he landed the roundhouse left hook to the top of Fury's temple and put him down, I've got to admit, I might have shouted out a few things or gasped or said, "Oh my God," like everybody else in the world did. And the aftermath is proving to be very interesting indeed, despite the fact that Fury escaped. And I'm sure we'll get into that in great detail in a few minutes here.
I mean, just look at the faces of the fighters, Daniel, afterwards. And we'll get into your comments, what you need. I'll put them up as I go to Daniel on this one. Shout out to What You Need, who's checking us out live. Fury was the one who had swelling over his left eye, right? Ngannou was fresh as a daisy. A day after, well, earlier today, Fury was being interviewed and basically saying that put all of this on me, and he had a big old black eye, right? And yeah, dare I say, this tarnishes his legacy after the fight. They were talking about Usyk trying to hype that up, and Usyk said, "Okay, if we want to fight, we want to do this on December 23rd. Since you made me capitulate and capitulate in all kinds of ways to make the fight right." Fury and Frank Warren was like, wait a minute, let's push this back, given what just happened. One, Fury, to Gail's point, did not take this fight seriously and should not have been in a position for this to happen. Two, it raises questions about the likelihood of him fighting Usyk, be it on December 23rd or even at a later date. Dare I say, Daniel, the skepticism that you have towards a fight happening for undisputed at heavyweight, it continues after what we saw in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. First love, what you need. Yeah, ducked for a cherry pick gone wrong.
Yeah,
pretty
for
much.
those
Yeah,
who are not checking us out on YouTube and who may be checking us out, listening to this on another platform, I'll read the comment from What You Need. Excuse me, Daniel. He says that Fury ducked Usyk for a cherry pick gone wrong. Continue on.
Yeah, because let's face it, folks. They're gonna reschedule the Usyk fight for February 32nd. Like this, though, it almost felt like Fury went into this fight not giving a damn, just to make sure he did enough where he could say, let's delay this further. More than likely, that's probably subconsciously what happened. There was a lot of trolling when it came to this fight. Chael Sonnen, UFC fighter, he himself trolled a good amount of people because he put out a tweet saying, "Oh, I'm at the fight live. There's a broadcast delay, 15, 20 minutes. Fury knocked him out cold." And like I said, I shared that with you guys and was like, okay, this is interesting. Just like, because knowing the history of Chael Sonnen, there's a lot of trolling going on. But this was just, a case of one fighter not really caring that much about the fight. And as a result, having his opponent look like he's overachieving. Because first, let's knock this out the way. People were acting like the Red Sea parted by the fact that Ngannou knocked down Fury. That would be a great reaction, if Steve Cunningham and Deontay Wilder didn't already do it. That would probably be the first fight. And Steve Cunningham's first more impressive because of the height difference.
And the weight difference.
Mm-hmm. So there's mainly that. And second, while Ngannou does get a little bit of credit for the fact that he actually came semi-prepared, he wasn't like McGregor. McGregor we all knew he was in for the money. We all knew he was in for the money. The minute he tried to throw hammer fist at Floyd in that fight, we knew he wasn't serious. But Ngannou came in somewhat serious, and I do gotta commend him for that. But at the same time, he did bitch about the fact that, oh, Tyson Fury threw an elbow at me, where you could have just said I was slick enough where I even avoided his counter, and it just so happened to hit my elbow. That probably would have been the better answer Francis should have given, instead of bitching about the fact that, oh, somebody elbowed me. You're an MMA fighter. I think you normally signed up to get elbows to the face when you're an MMA. So that part of me graded me. Fortunately, till now when they came into this, but the situation is what it is. It made a lot of money. Like Tyson Fury apparently made like 65 million pounds as a purse when it came to this, and more than likely, because it is the easiest way to further delay the inevitable non-fight with Usyk, they're probably going to do a rematch. And this time they'll probably do it in Jeddah. Like, same thing. It's still gonna be Saudi money involved in this, because unfortunately, at the end of the day, people are gonna want Fury to actually avenge the sport of boxing, even though it was probably his plan to come in half-assed because he was already looking at another opponent that he doesn't want to fight. And I'll leave it at that.
Speaking of overreaction, I want both of your opinions on this. Discussion has been just all over the place about this fight, right? Lennox Lewis went to social media saying he felt Fury won the fight, other fighters as well. Well, news has dropped that Mauricio Suleiman, president of the WBC, plans to rank Ngannou in the top 10 of their upcoming heavyweight rankings for November, right? Look, I know that Ngannou did well and exceeded expectations across the board, put Fury on his butt. But to Daniel's point about overreacting, are people doing that, particularly the WBC, in favor of Ngannou? I wrote an article about this for Three Kings Boxing. It's on the site. It dropped on the site earlier today. Please check out threekingsboxing.com. Source pure unadulterated boxing information. Shout out to everybody over there at Three Kings, 2K, aka Prodigy of Boxing, Talk the man behind Three Kings. Bo, head of media relations, senior writer. You heard him on this show numerous times. Bakari, fellow senior writer. I'm a senior writer. Red, who's our editor. All the contributors behind the scenes, right? I think this is a step too far when it comes to the World Boxing Council. For them to do this means that they're going to have to knock out someone who's already in the top 10. As you mentioned, Gail, Martin Bakole fought on the same card. He's ranked in the top 10. Joseph Parker, who fought on this card, he's in the top 10. Bakole has been on a roll in recent fights, right? Getting better and better with each fight. He looks like a serious contender. I personally don't like that they're doing this for Ngannou. I get it why, for a lot of pub and attention and whatnot, but this seems like a clickbait move, and this is against tradition. This is against protocol. Your thoughts on what the WBC plans to do?
Right, everybody, hold the phone. I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it. The commissions are a business. The commissions are in existence in theory to, keep the menu straight, but the commissions earn a percentage of the purse in their sanctioned fights. You really think Mauricio Suleiman is going to bypass this opportunity? Hell no. He'd be an idiot if he didn't do this. An absolute idiot on behalf of this organization. Now, let's talk about this. So, surely he is going to displace somebody who is currently in the top 10. I don't have the rankings in front of me, but I have called up BoxRec, which does use a completely different system. Here's your top 10 according to BoxRec. Usyk, Joshua, Fury right now, Daniel Dubois, Otto Wallin is number 5, Zhilei Zhang is 6, Joe Joyce, Murat Gassiev, who just lost to Otto Wallin, by the way, Dillian White at number 9, and Filip Hrgovic. Chisora is 11, Bacoli's still down at 12, Parker is 13th, Efe Ajagba, who we're going to see this weekend, is the number 14, and Jared Anderson rounds off the top 15. If we had more of a murderer's row in this top 10, maybe I'd feel a little more uncomfortable. If Francis Ngannou bumps down Murat Gassiev, Dillian White, or Filip Hrgovic, it gives me no heartburn whatsoever. Absolutely none. And everybody's looking at the outcome of this fight. It's a Rorschach test. It's a combat sports Rorschach test. Everybody is looking at it through their own personal dirty lens. Here's what I think. If we are the boxing community, we have brought Francis Ngannou over to the dark side. We should be celebrating. How often do you see boxers clamoring to break through and get into the cage in MMA? Very rarely, and only if they need to make more money somehow. It's much more common with women who have fewer opportunities to make a decent sized purse. Male champions who participate in straightforward boxing, no, it doesn't happen. But all these MMA guys want over here. They want to come play on our side of the fence. Why are we not celebrating this? I don't understand what you're all missing out there. We won him to our side. Now, I get it. The MMA fans are, dancing on Tyson Fury and boxing's grave. But you know what? I don't mind it. And they deserve to do it. Look at how we shamed them every time an MMA fighter got a beat down, even in an exhibition. We've just given them enormous amounts of shit. So if you dish it out, you better be willing to take it, everybody. I am fascinated by this. This has brought a level of energy and excitement that we rarely see in today's universe. This is a major news story everywhere. I am not wringing my hands over this. I am not crying in my beer. There's something very interesting going on about this infusion of energy. The only thing that disturbs me is my long-standing opposition to allowing the Saudi government to buy the goodwill of the sports community and engage in sports washing to divert us from their hideous human rights record. They wouldn't be the first. So that aside, I'm finding this fascinating. There are a lot of options. Francis Ngannou has talked about his options. He's still in Riyadh. As of this morning, his word was that his next fight will be in the boxing ring, not in a cage. And he intends to announce his next fight within the next week. And that's the word from him. So clearly he and his team are working on something. Now, in the same vein, Eddie Hearn, Matchroom Boxing promoter, almost since the end of the fight Saturday, has been talking about his efforts to make a fight between Ngannou and Anthony Joshua. And he wants to take that December 23rd date that Fury and Usyk are going to vacate. He wants Joshua to fight one more time this year. don't be surprised, ladies and gentlemen, if that actually comes to pass 8 weeks or so from now.
Thumbs up to the hoopla and hype train, Daniel, or are you just like, okay, things are going a little bit too far here?
Say that again.
Thumbs up to the hype train and hoopla, or are you like, okay, things are going a little bit too far here, given what the WBC plans to do?
Look, I'm already mad at Mauricio based on another fight that we're going to talk about after this. But as Gail said numerous times again, on and off the air, he ain't a dummy. He knows that this is going to be a good money fight to get, no matter what. And when he right into somebody like Francis Ngannou, who, by the way, because it probably the main reason why he wants a boxing fight next is because the Saudis look almost ready, if not, they haven't already, to have purchased Bellator, which was mainly by default the number 2 MMA promotion in North America behind the UFC. So he's going to be dealing with the Saudis either way if he goes to the PFL, because the Saudis own the PFL. So why not deal with them for more money in that front? But it's understandable. Like I said, the rematch with Fury to me is probably going to be the way they want to go. Fury seems going to delay anything that they can to pressure Usyk to throw up his hands and say he doesn't want to fight anymore. And ultimately, like I said, it'll make them money. Like people talk about, Gail mentioned it, like Ngannou versus Joshua. People talk about versus, like I was got to say right there, MG. Ngannou versus Wilder, which I don't think that's going to happen. More than likely, it's going to be the rematch with Fury. But the fact of the matter is, when you overachieve the way he overachieved, you're going to get a bit of hype. You're going to get a bit of, let's say, a honeymoon period. And ultimately, is it overall good for the sport? In many ways, yeah. As much as MMA fans want to try to have boxing fans eat crow, Gail's right. The ratio of boxers trying to get into the octagon pales in comparison to the ratio of MMA guys that want to get into the boxing ring for big money. And guess what? If you're in the world of MMA, you're going to deal with the Saudis one way or the other, because PFL Bellator, not owned by the Saudis. And apparently the UFC has now locked up their own WWE style deal where they're still going to start hosting shows in Saudis. So either way, you're going to be dealing with the Saudis. So if you're going to deal with them, if you're going to take their blood money, you might at least take more of their blood money through boxing than rather through MMA.
We will see. We will see what direction this goes. One thing's for sure, there's no ending to this. Will they fight again, Ngannou and Fury in a rematch? Maybe. I'd still rather see Fury and Usyk. I'd still rather see Joshua and Wilder, even though that fight has lost the luster over the years, and it's both of their faults. But
Well,
yeah,
and let me dive
yeah. This before I go to you, Gail.
Mhm.
As much as I'm pushing back, what went down represents what seems to be a sea change for the sport. Whether it's good for the bad or bad, it's a wait and see. Go ahead, Gail.
Yeah, let me jump in now that you've mentioned Wilder, and one of our commenters, thank you very much, MG, is here. You are absolutely right. Francis Ngannou also made mention of the fact that when he does return to the cage, a potential opponent is Deontay Wilder in the cage, not in the boxing ring. Wilder has been pursuing mixed martial arts training. Now, that's a hell of a statement. Very interesting. Got to admit, that has got my wheels turning. I'm curious how that would work. I think Wilder would be as overmatched as McGregor was against Mayweather, but that shows he's got some nerve. I'll give it to him, and it would certainly be a huge fight, a huge money fight. Let's face it. However long Ngannou decides to tease this out, there's a ton of money in it, a ton of interest among two different combat sports audiences, and it's going to start bleeding over to the mainstream as well. So if we're concerned about the future of boxing and future interest, this is nothing but good, folks. I think we all need to calm down about, it completely changing the sport. It only matters in this one section of our big universe. But this is still the heavyweight division, so it does matter.
Let's move on to other fights. I think I know where Daniel's going with this. Let's go to Mexico and Oshiki Foster making the first defense of the WBC 130-pound title, fought Eduardo Hernandez. Rocky Hernandez got out to a fast start, right? Reminded me a little bit, Daniel, of El Rey Martinez, who's WBC champion at 112 pounds, just throwing punches and bunches and just giving his style, just gave off that vibe. Foster took some time to get going. He started to pick it up in the middle rounds, and I say by rounds 8, 9, you can see the fatigue in Rocky Hernandez. Round 11, arguably the round of the year, as both guys just stood there and went to war. But that's when the defending champion, was able to hurt Rocky Hernandez, finished him off in the last round. And after the fight, we discovered that he needed that fight. He needed that round, that knockout to win. And you look at the scorecards, all the rounds in favor of Rocky Hernandez? Are you kidding me? You want to talk about favoritism of the WBC? Not only in my mind is it in the case of Ngannou, it was really in the case of this fight. I know the champion fought in the challenger's hometown of Mexico, but I mean, come on, can you be so obvious, World Boxing Council?
Oh God, this was bad.
I mean, what's the F word that you like to use to talk
this
about foolishness and chicane?
This was fuckery 101. And keep in mind, folks, that this fight wasn't okay. It wasn't awful. Like a lot of people, like because of the way Oshaki Foster fights, do feel sometimes that it's a fight where you can say it's a cure for insomnia in some ways, but Rocky did bring it pretty good in this fight. He tried to counter with the body, tried to throw his shots, and Foster actually adjusted probably around the 5th or 6th round, switching to a southpaw stance, and actually was landing the better shots. And Rocky took some rounds off up to the 10th and 11th because at that point he decided to turn it on. In fact, the 11th round is probably the late entrant, if not probably the leading candidate right now for round of the year. Because when you go from that round, you go from Oshaki landing a vicious right hand that rocks Rocky to the point where it actually caused him to turn his back to Oshaki Foster for a few seconds. That itself should have been enough to stop the fight. But the referee let it continue. And almost right afterwards, Rocky landed a shot and he had Oshaki Foster in trouble for the remainder of the round. And Foster luckily turned on the engines in the 12th round, landed shots after shots, knocked him down twice, and ultimately stopped Rocky Martinez. Now, unfortunately, the scorecards were the main key. And okay, it's one thing to get like the CJ Ross card. Let's call it a CJ Ross card that where you had one card be 118. I think 118, 111, 118, 110. I think it was that card for one of the Canelo fights, and that was the card that drove her out of boxing. It's another for looking at this fight, having that one judge scoring every round of fight. And that, unfortunately, it brings back the good old stories of corruption within sanctioning bodies. Because who was it? Was it Tapia or was it Vinny Paz who talked about an infamous story where associates of the WBA came to his hotel room trying to stir up some mess? That's the taste that leaves out of people's mouth. Because what people should be talking about is the fact that Shockey Foster showed that he did have the heart of a champion. That even after coming to the opponent that was landing body shots, even though the referee was still warning him that he shouldn't hold as much as he did, he was able to adjust. He was able to land better shots, and in the end, he was more built to last as far as conditioning and as far as punch resistance. Sadly, that's it. The main story is not that. And once again, like when it comes to boxing, sometimes we are the Sideshow Bob meme, where we step on a rake and it smacks us in the face. We try to walk away and we smack ourselves again in a rake in the face. And yeah, it just leaves a bad taste in people's mouth.
As impressed as I am, Gail, with the patience, the heart, the toughness, the professionalism of excuse me, of Shockey Foster, I am outraged with the scoring. If he didn't pull it out the fire, he was going to lose. They were hell bent on taking that title from him, no matter what. He just happened to say nope and knocked him out.
Well, bear in mind that in Mexico, under the WBC, there's open scoring after the 4th round, after the 8th round. So Foster's corner knew after the 8th round he was in trouble. And can you imagine seeing that 3rd scorecard and all 8 rounds so far having gone to Hernandez? Yeah, that'll light a fire under you. Foster also, after the fight, he knew he was going into the enemy territory on enemy's turf. He's done it before. Shockey Foster's been through a lot in his life, and it's similar to Francis Ngannou. He's gone through a lot worse than losing a fight in Mexico. He's been in prison. He's had to really scrape to get where he is. He was just not going to be denied. Good for him. But he and his team know what they're up against. And that, in this case, they really knew. They absolutely knew. This was no mystery to them. So I certainly hope that judge, who clearly filled out the scorecard in the parking lot or did it before and had it, in the glove box of his car before he walked in, that's grounds for some kind of discipline. Yes, and he will get my CJ. I give a CJ Ross award every year at the end of the year, and he's really pretty much the odds-on favorite right now for that. Yeah, that was a bad bit of news. What I do find interesting is Foster now saying that he wants the winner of this weekend's fight between Joe Cordina and, boy, now his opponent's name escapes me, in Monaco. Asked whether he'd go to the UK to get that fight. He said, yeah, of course. Why not? Good for him. We need more guys like that, willing to do that. Clearly, the 11th round, if it is not round of the year here in another less than 60 days, I'll be shocked.
It was fantastic. Just fantastic. That's what it's about, and I hope for those who haven't watched the fight find a replay of it, be it on YouTube or wherever, because the last half of the fight, particularly that 11th round, was just spectacular. In terms of Foster, he got the win. We're going to talk about Joe Cordina in a bit. His upcoming fight, he has a mandatory title. He has a title defense coming up. Excuse me. And Foster mentioned his name afterwards, and fingers crossed. Should Cordina take care of business this coming weekend, we can see a fight between him and O'Shaquie Foster, a unification bout at some point in 2024. Head to the ladies' Gale in Florida. Amanda Serrano, she had a mandatory title defense um, against Danila Ramos. Dominant performance by the undisputed women's featherweight champion. We talked about this in depth and how this was a 12-round, 3-minute fight, and for those who for one Mr. Suleiman, who again seems to be a prevailing topic on this particular episode, he said he would not sanction this bout. Made all kinds of reasons why he didn't think it was safe for women to go fight for basically 36 minutes. Well, I hope he was watching that fight because Serrano, she threw punches early. She threw punches often and did not stop for the fight. Was 1,100 punches during the round and wasn't tired at the end. I still have questions about the power. I still think she's fighting with the hand issues, but outside of getting a stoppage, it was Serrano in this one all the way, Gail.
It was. And Serrano and her team made a very good choice in Ramos. She was a legitimate mandatory, but not a threat to Serrano and her quest for history. There's been some behind the scenes criticism of the matchup. Serrano did take it to Ramos pretty hard, especially those last few rounds. I know I was a little bit uncomfortable watching them. I really thought Ramos's corner should have pulled her, and perhaps if they wanted their own historical marker, they could have pulled her after 10 or beginning the 11th and gotten that notch. But apparently they were absolutely hell-bent on making it to the end of the fight. I hope that Ramos doesn't suffer the worst for it. And I had a behind-the-scenes discussion that night with a promoter most of you would know who was not very happy about it. Nevertheless, Serrano did prove her point, and Ramos did give it all she had. Between the two, they threw just a little bit shy of 2,000 punches, with Serrano throwing about 1,100 of those, which was awfully impressive. Sadly, though, she really, really wanted a knockout, because part of the exercise was also to prove that with the existence of the third minute, a power puncher like Serrano could make use of that third minute and her knockout rate would go up, which is, she still has an excellent knockout rate on the women's side of the sport. However, in her last half dozen fights, they've all gone the distance. So I'm sure she was a bit disappointed by that. Nevertheless, it was a historic night. I'm pleased to see how much of a fuss the promoters, the venue made of it. There were a lot of women's champions in the building from the past to celebrate, most notably Holly Holm, Layla Ali, and Christy Salters Martin. And Martin had one of her own fighters that she promotes on the undercards. That was a nice touch. And that's not a huge venue. It seats a little over 4,000. It was jammed. There were more than 4,100 in there. And everyone I know who was there said that it was so loud that you thought you were like in Madison. You were in Madison Square Garden watching Serrano and Taylor all over again. That it was just crazy all night. And I want to mention, although you may be getting to this, during the card, in fact, just before the main event, MVP announced that they would, on the undercard of Jake Paul's next fight on December 15th as the co-main, they have made a matchup for the currently vacant WBC super middleweight title between Shadeja Green and Franchon Cruz Dezern, and I can't wait.
That's because, in my opinion, Shadeja Green, look, it's going to be an exciting fight, but I think Shadeja Green, at
Oh, yeah.
long last, not only is she going to get her world title shot, she's going to win a world title because I'm saying I'm going 10 toes down on this one. Franchise Cruz, if
I'm with
Green comes to
you.
fight, that Franchise Cruz is not beating her. She
Yeah,
ain't
no,
beating her.
I agree with you. I adore Franchon. I love what she's done for the sport. She is a Renaissance woman and accomplished in so many other ways outside the boxing ring. But damn, Shadeja Green is a fighter in the absolute spitting image of Ann Wolfe. And
Absolutely.
she also has the same mean streak, which I love. And she and Franchon do not like each other. And they've made that very clear. So I think we're going to have a fun buildup for this. And let us note that I don't know who Paul's opponent's going to be. I don't think he has named one, but this is not a pay-per-view. This will be a regular DAZN card, which is terrific.
I'll go to you, Daniel. Let's go back to Serrano right quick. What's next for her? A lot of people mentioned Baumgartner in the lead up to this fight, but Alicia Baumgartner has a mandatory title defense coming up against Delphine Persoon whenever she gets back into the ring. So that kind of leaves, Serrano's dance card open. She would love a rematch with Katie Taylor, but we know that Katie Taylor is going to fight Chantel Cameron rematch in November in Ireland. So yeah, with her no set opponent right now for Serrano, who do you see her fight next?
That's the difficult part because she's in right now in a weight class where she has pretty much almost effectively cleaned them out. So she may have to play, unfortunately, the waiting game, which, given her, like I said, given the probably still lingering hand issues, it might benefit her to actually to play a little waiting game, see what happens between Katie and Chantel. Maybe Katie finds some formula to beat Chantel Cameron, and then Amanda can go avenge her win and try to get a rematch in that area. If not, if it's a situation where Chantel Cameron beats out Katie Taylor and then Katie retires, while sad, then that's a new target for Amanda. So it's probably going to be the waiting game. It'll probably looking more towards that winner of that fight because it's not only a situation where the division's already cleaned out the way she did it. It's also the most economically enticing fight for Amanda. The only situation is going to be is she going to ask again for the 12 rounds and once again for the 3 minutes because she did fairly well in this fight. She did. Like she completely dominated. But at times it did feel like she was trying to slow down enough to make sure that she lasted the 12 rounds to prove a point. Probably now don't want to do that against, say, Chantel Cameron. So we have to see how that fares, but that's probably what they're eyeing for. And quite frankly, if she's still with Jake Paul, that's a fight, unfortunately, Jake Paul as a promoter would definitely love to have because it's just another way to dunk on Eddie.
Right. Going to talk about the left the news portion open when I set the docket because it's so soon following what went down this weekend. I didn't see nothing on my radar, so I go to you, Gail and Daniel. If you have any important news of the day, boxing wise, the floor is yours.
Well, I would not necessarily put this in the important category, but I will put it in the news and it's possibly going to come out soon category. So we've got that December 23rd date open. And yeah, Eddie Hearn's talking big about making a Wilder and Ngannou fight, but he also admits it's probably not going to happen by the 23rd. He is thinking about trying for a fight date for those two, should they be agreeable to it, in February. What he is talking about putting in on the 23rd is Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. So bet on it, everybody. That's going to be the fight on the 23rd. And you know what? That's just fine with me because it's the holidays and I'm going to be busy.
Anything on your part, on your you've been hearing anything on these boxing streets, Daniel?
Not at the moment. Not at the moment. So that's going to be interesting to see what Gail mentioned.
With that being the case, let's go to preview some of these fights. Some of the fights that's going to happen this upcoming weekend, the weekend of November 4th. Going back to you, Daniel, we mentioned Joe Cordina in our discussion about Shaki Foster. As I teased, he has an upcoming fight title defense against Eduardo Vazquez. Think that's going to be, I believe that's going to be in Wales. Correct me if I'm wrong. What do you think of Cordina coming off of what I consider a impressive win in the mandatory title defense last time out? He's been wanting a big fight, but he cannot get it if he doesn't take care of business against Vazquez. Cordina at his best is a guy who can really box with pop in his punch, particularly the right hand. I make him the favorite. I think that Vazquez is going to give him a tough go, but my official prediction is Cordina by decision. What say you, Daniel?
Yeah, well, it should be Cordina by decision because he is good. He is good as being an effective boxer, and he does really good at fighting the home turf. But we also know what happens when somewhat unheralded Latino fighters suddenly go to the UK, and the UK fighter may have another big fight lined up. They tend to upset the apple cart a little bit.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, so we have to give the shot when it comes to Vazquez in that front. The main difference, luckily, with Prince Cordina still has a chip on his shoulder. Because we have to remember, he had to win back his belt after being stripped of it. So he does have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. And that's probably going to be fuel to his fire. He'll probably be enough where he can actually handle the situation. And ultimately, that's probably going to be what it's going to be. Probably a good decision, probably good fight. Like I said, Cordina does provide good entertainment, and I expect more of the same.
Before we go on to preview more fights, shout out to MG. MG is here. He has a request. I didn't put this in the docket, but he requested that we talk about Fabio Wardley. Rising heavyweight from England, scored a stoppage win over David Adelaide, excuse me. I'll go to you, Gail, on this one. Quick word on this one. Yeah, Wardley, yeah. He's gaining some attention in the UK. Stopped Adelaide in 7th rounds. Adelaide made news, was trending a bit for the way he pushed the referee after the fight was stopped and whatnot. That was unprofessional and unbecoming on his part. But yeah, Wardley, solid boxing skills, has power, right? A guy to keep an eye on in the heavyweight scene.
Yeah. Another reason why I did in the end decide to purchase and watch the card to see some of these young rising heavyweights. Although he's not terribly young, he isn't Moses Saitama, who's 18 years old, who I'm incredibly impressed with. But Fabio Wardley did an admirable job. Adele gave him a pretty, tough opposition for the rounds he was in, but eventually he just beat him down, bloodied him up pretty good. He knocked him down. He beat the count. He was wobbling all over the place. John Latham decided to allow him to continue, but he kept a really close eye on him. Thank God I was stunned he let him go. And he was right on top of things when he got smacked again. And David was not happy and shoved him. And, that's a big, big man shoving an average-sized human being referee. David Adele, for anybody who was curious, weighed in at 232, I believe, at 6'4", 232. That's a big hunk of dude. And then he decided to double down and curse at him and yell in his face and spit on him and the whole thing. Yeah, he will be sitting out for a while and paying a nice fine. So I hope it makes an impression. But Wardley is progressing along nicely. He's being matched well. In his last couple of fights, he beat Michael Coffey, who many Americans know, in 4 rounds. He beat Nathan Gorman before that, who I had been very impressed with, and he went through him like a knife through butter. So one to watch. We do have a younger generation of heavyweights coming up. You throw guys in like Jared Anderson, for as far as he can go, Richard Torres, but unfortunately he's so much more cruiserweight sized. Unfortunately, that's going to be a problem. You have Jalalov, the Olympic gold medalist, who's just this big, big damn beast. So we've got some things to look forward to in the heavyweight division once all the big boys.
He does that neck thing like Mike Tyson used to do back in the day, just
yes,
with that twitch thing.
Yes,
yeah,
that's true. That's a good call. Yeah, no, very, very enjoyable to watch. I was very glad to see some of these young heavyweights, and it's interesting to me how many of the talented young heavyweights are from the UK. Everybody.
Yeah, you were going to say something, Daniel?
I was about to say, I can't pronounce the name of the Uzbeki fighter, but he may actually already have Olympic dreams, be back in the mix, because I think he was in the Olympic trials a couple of weeks ago, if I remember correctly. So he's probably going to hold off to at least Paris, after Paris 2024.
Who are we talking about?
That tall Uzbeki fight, the heavyweight, the one you mentioned.
Oh, Jalalov, who was who beat Richard Torres for the gold medal. No, he's already had pro fights. He signed I think he signed a top rank. Top rank, I think, signed virtually all the big time fighters out of the Olympics. I'm not sure he's eligible again, but the rules are very fluid. I mean, there are rampant rumors that Manny Pacquiao intends to petition and try to fight in the Olympics in Paris, which would be nutty. Just nuts.
I hope that doesn't happen. But
again,
appreciate the reminder of MG. I omitted that bout in the docket that I sent out earlier. But yes, you gave a request, and so we're talking about it right now. Let's get back to previewing the fights that's going to happen on the weekend, particularly on November 4th, on the undercard of Cordina and Vazquez. And I'll handle this right here. Sivenathi Nonthinga makes the second defense of the IBF junior flyweight title, fighting Adrien Dominguez. Nonthinga, 24-year-old South African, won the belt with tough decision win, unanimous decision win over Hector Flores, September of last year. One of the better fights of 2022 that does not get talked about. Do yourself a favor. You should be able to find that fight between Nonthinga and Flores. Beaten Flores in Flores' home country of Mexico. Had to really bite down and pull out the win. You should be able to find it on whatever, on YouTube, or if you have a subscription to DAZN, it should be up there. I covered his first title defense for Three Kings Boxing live. Nonthinga defeating Reggie Shubanov. It was a mandatory defense in his home country of South Africa. He returns against Dominguez. And in analyzing both fighters, watching them on film, right, I give the nod to the defending champion, Nonthinga. Nice boxer, puncher. He showed power in both the win over Flores as well as his defeat of Shubanov in July. Put Shubanov down in the first round and went on to control matters with the jab. Sports an excellent jab. Good movement, good speed as well. Pop in the right hand. Nonthinga has visions of fighting a unification bout in 2024. Has talked up a possible fight with Kenshiro Taraji, but he has to take care of business first against Dominguez. Uh, all things being fair, he should do that. I say that he wins this by decision. Dominguez, he's a pressure fighter. He's going to be in his face all night, but I just think the overall skills and the speed and the foot movement of the IBF champion, of the defending IBF champion, will be too much. I'll go back. I'll go to you on this one, Daniel. The return of Efe Ajagba. That's going to take place again on the 4th in Lake Tahoe. I can't get a read on Ajagba in terms of where he's standing right now, right? If you just look at him physically, he's one of the more impressive figures in the heavyweight division. But at times, I question his desire. I question his commitment. And I question whether he's truly developed over the years. Big, strong dude, right? Big power in the right hand. But the all-around game is still something that's lacking there, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is one of the fighters in the situation where Derek James, I think he's still training with Derek James, and Derek James' sudden flood of top tier talent has probably taken away from a lot of the focus on Ajagba, because he is, like, if you look at him physically, you mentioned he's a very good. He looks like a good fighter. And early on in his early PBC days, he did have a flair of getting knockouts. Kind of reminded you of a Nigerian Wilder in some ways. And of course, he's also the fighter that was at the other end of what became one of the funniest memes in boxing, of that guy that stepped foot in the ring, and as soon as the bell rang, he just got out of it and walked away. But since at a certain point, it does seem like his career has stalled a bit. And Gail mentioned, like I said, when she mentioned some of the top 10 heavyweights that WBC has, and Jabba, is probably one of the names where, if they're going to throw Francis Ngannou in there, it's probably one of the few names where you can say, yeah, I could see taking him out in case of Francis at the moment. So he does need to show out a bit, because right now, with the heavyweight scene as it is, with like Fury more than likely going to rematch Francis, meaning that Usyk will most likely fight Hrgovic. You still got to leave him trying to put himself into position, because short of Wilder actually making this fight with Angel Ruiz and not becoming a mandatory again, he can have a position where he can make a case that he should be at least someone considered next in line when it came to Fury.
Quick word on this upcoming bout, Gail.
Yeah, you're right. You know, if you just are administering the eye test, Ajagba is very impressive and very threatening looking. But, you know, we are just up on top of Halloween, and Ajagba walks like Frankenstein's monster. He's stiff, not very mobile, straight up and down. He has power, no question about it, but he also has a pretty porous defense. And he has had what I can only describe as some crazy ass fights where he got clocked. And a guy that big and that stiff goes down really hard. Do yourselves a favor, friends, if you have never watched his fight a couple of Decembers ago against Iago Kiladze of Georgia, you know, the state of Georgia. That was one of the wildest fights I ever saw ringside in my life. And it was up and down, multiple knockouts on both sides, crazy, just straight up crazy. He should win, but yeah, I like you guys, I'm concerned about the fact that his skill set just seems to have stalled. I mean, it's one thing for him to be that, you know, immobile, if you will, if his defense was a little better. and I'm just not convinced it's gone much of anywhere. Still, he's up there as a worthy opponent. He only has the one loss. I'm always interested, I have to admit, when I see his name, on the bout sheet, because I'm always curious what I'm going to get. And sometimes it's just a fight, and sometimes it's just sort of crazy. And who doesn't like crazy once in a while?
Indeed. I think we're going to end things on that note. Um, I
I
want to
I
thank.
will I will
Go
add
ahead.
that we do have a Pro Box show this Wednesday night on the 1st, featuring Janelson Bocachica of the Dominican Republic, who now fights out of Las Vegas, and Angelo Leo out of New Mexico via Las Vegas, whose only loss was to Roman Villa. So good rebuilding fights, and I really like what Pro Box has put together. They do 2 cards a month. Chris Algieri and Paulie Malignaggi are on the call, always entertaining, even when the fights suck. So check it out on ProBox TV.
Indeed, I think we're going to end things on that note. I want to thank What You Need. MG is here for their questions and their comments. If you're checking this out on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe as well. It'll help the overall algorithms and get us closer to being monetized, right? Go to the panel. Begin the show with ladies first, end the show with ladies first. Gail for nyfights.com for those who want to talk boxing. Let the folks know where they can find you.
You know it. It's nyfights.com, nyfights.com. Yes, we are following up the crazy weekend we've just had. I will recommend you to the site because the International Boxing Hall of Fame has opened up its annual memorabilia auction. It helps fund the Hall of Fame ceremony later in the year. Some great items. Check it out. You can put your bids up. I think they start the bidding at $20. A lot of signed gloves from some of the champions and Hall of Famers. I know that Evander Holyfield has donated goods. Timothy Bradley has donated. You'll just go look at the list if you got a few bucks and you're looking to add to your collection. Benefits the Boxing Hall of Fame.
Indeed, I'll go to you, Daniel, for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk pro wrestling, for those who want to talk the NBA, including all things Miami Heat. Let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yes, folks, you can find me on Twitter, on Threads, on Blue Sky, and on Mastodon. Same handle, Ruckus99, RAWKUZ99. Because more than likely, unfortunately, Elmo probably found the one thing now that he knows will definitely kill Twitter, actually charging people by force to tweet. So we got to start rebuilding the
I
base,
refuse to
folks. On
give
that
up the
side.
5 on GP. I refuse to give up the 5. To quote Martin, I ain't gonna do it. You can kick rocks with that. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, you know what it is with me on Twitter because I refuse to call it X because of nonsense like that. You can check me out there on Brother JR76. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, and fragrance on with yours truly on TikTok and IG, you can do so, Brother JRSC. On the next episode, it looks like it may be just a recap show because there's no real significant developments or no significant fights, I should say, happening on the weekend of November 11th. So next week, if we have a show, it'll mainly be a recap of Cordina and Vazquez, Nonthinga, his title defense against Dominguez, and Ajagba against he's fighting Joe Goodall, and then maybe some other boxing matters that we'll talk about as well. Um, so again, thank everybody who joined us in the live chat. For Gail from nyfights.com, from Daniel for Boxing News, and the Inscriber. And before we sign off, condolences to family, friends, and loved ones of because we had a couple of significant passings in the entertainment world this past week, over last week, as Richard Roundtree. For those who do not know, the original Shaft, and Matthew Perry, who's best known for his years on the show, Friends. Uh, Unfortunately, both passed away over the weekend. A shock to everybody. Um, if you want to, because we ended this thing a little bit early, Daniel Gale, a quick word from you, or from either of you, on the passing, the untimely passing of both Richard Roundtree and Matthew Perry.
Well, Roundtree actually lived a long, good life. He was 81, which was a stunner to realize that, but an iconic role as John Shaft, and all of us should revisit the movie. It's a period piece, but it holds up incredibly well, and that's a pioneering role in so many ways. So wonderful to celebrate his life.
Yeah, Richard Roundtree, the arguably the definitive movie of the quote unquote black exploitation era. For a lot of, I've heard this said by the older heads that I know. His character, mainly as Shaft. Please, I got it on video, on my computer, on old DVD. Um, Epitomized black manhood in a certain context. He was, for a lot of people, our black Superman, and Matthew Perry. I mean, come on, what they did with Friends. It doesn't need to be said in terms of the impact of that show. What they did behind the scenes, coming together, bucking the system, fighting for more money, and all that. When you see the writer strike and all that now, there's an interplay between what they was doing when it comes to renewing their contracts and what they're seeing now with the writers strike and the actor strike. Subsequently, I go to you, Daniel, a brief word on the passing of Richard Roundtree and Matthew Perry.
Richard Roundtree, yeah, the original Shaft, probably the definitive template for what the '70s black machismo, black exploitation character was in many ways. Like, I think almost everybody from Dolomite to Black Dynamite, like all those type of movies and cartoons and shows in that area, all take from Shaft and they'll take from Richard Roundtree. And unfortunately, Matthew Perry, obviously, show Friends, one of the most famous shows in the world, worth a lot of money when it comes to multi-streaming, and
Yeah,
he did good in that area. Unfortunately, it's tragic the way that he died in many ways. Because with Richard Roundtree, at least he got to live a long, good life. And unfortunately, with Matthew Perry, the way he went out, it went out, unfortunately, too soon in a lot of people's eyes, and I don't blame him.
indeed. So I want to give a brief word. I couldn't let that show let this particular episode without honoring those two. So yeah, for Gail, for Daniel, I'm your host Michael. This has been episode 424 of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. We will see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.